Well, good morning, everyone. Hopefully you can all hear me well. I'm not quite sure if there's a way for you to let us know except in the chat window. Great. Okay, I'm getting a few messages saying you can hear me fine. That's wonderful. Welcome to the webinar hosted by OSS Cube. My name is Peter McIntyre, and today we're going to be looking at team development concepts within the tool of Zend Studio for Eclipse. First, just a little bit about me. I have over 20 years of experience in the IT industry. I've written a few books and contributed to a few books. Most recently, I wrote PHP The Good Parts by O'Reilly, published by O'Reilly Press. I've also co-authored Programming PHP, second edition, also published by O'Reilly. I've co-wrote Zend Studio for Eclipse Developer's Guide. That was a couple years ago, published by Addison Wesley. And if you pick that copy up, you'll see it's a little stale from what version of Zend Studio is out now. I've also written and text edited a number of IT books. There's some white papers on Zend.com that I've contributed to and written to. I'm currently working on a new book that should be out in May, or hopefully May, by A Press, and it's an advanced PHP book. And I live in Prince Edward Island in eastern Canada. Before we get too far, I just wanted to do a few housekeeping topics. We are recording this webinar, so if you show up late or want to re-watch it, we'll be able to make that available in a few days likely, or hopefully even by the end of today, for people to watch at their leisure online. Also, if you have any questions, hopefully you can save those until the end, and we do have time set aside at the end for questions and answers. So I'm just looking around here to see who's with us. We've got a number of people showing up. So again, if you're late, don't worry about it. We are recording this webinar for viewing later. So we're going to talk about Zend Studio for Eclipse first, a little bit about that tool. It is a Zend product. It's been on the market for a couple of years now. It's a integrated development environment, or IDE. The one good thing about it is that it is based on the Eclipse platform, so it's not tied to PHP only kind of work. So you can, any kind of module that you discover in Eclipse, you can, with a little help, you can include that into your IDE within Zend Studio as well. So it's very flexible and very open in that sense. Basically, what we have, though, inside the Zend Studio is the concepts of views and perspectives. So before we get too far into the team aspect of it, I just want to, excuse me, I just want to review some of the basic layouts of Zend Studio. So again, like I said, we have views, and they are tab windows, and they're all for specific purposes. And we'll excuse me, and we'll see some of that as we go on. A collection of views is known as a perspective. So you can have different views all arranged as you like it, and you can call that a perspective. Zend Studio does come with some of its own preset perspectives, and we'll be seeing some of that as well. Um, Within the basic perspectives or basic operating environment, Zend Studio has gone with the idea of projects. So projects are a collection of files, resources, anything that you need to produce a certain web project or web product. It's a way you can manage certain individual files or libraries of code and have them all collected in projects. So you can work on multiple projects at the same time if you want, which is very handy. Also, we will see as we go here that there is a way to manage your environment with the preferences and settings that you can have within the IDE. So you're not limited to the way it works when it comes right out of after you do your install. I'll be jumping back and forth here, so hopefully you can see my screen well enough. The slides should be available on the screen right now, and like I said, I'll be jumping back and forth between the slides and the Zend Studio product as we do some demonstrations. So here's a look. A first look at and again, this image is a little bit out of focus, but we'll see it later on here. I just wanted to go over some of the options within a basic look of Zend Studio. So here, like I said, these are the different views. Here's a view here, the Project Explorer, and here's some different projects and some individual files within each project. So this is a tree view. You can collapse and expand those as you go. Here is the main code view. So as you open up more code windows, code files, these will appear here in tabs. Again, you can split the screen here this way or this way as you like, and you'll be able to arrange your code windows as you go. There's more perspectives over here, or sorry, more views over here. Here's an outline view, task view, and there's some down below here as well, console and problem view. So I'm just going to jump to Zend Studio here, and we can see excuse me, here, hopefully in a better view, that this is the PHP Explorer view. Again, I have two projects going, and they are tree-based. They can expand and collapse. And when I open a code file, we can see the tab opening up here, and we can edit our code as we like. Line numbers are showing up here. Over here, there's the outline view and the task list view. A lot of these views we'll be getting into as we move along. So the first concept I want to talk about for team management, so to speak, is with source code. Source code management. There's two major front runners in code repositories. The first one is CVS, and another one is called Subversion or SVN. SVN is the one I use. It's a little more modern, and once you just pick one or the other, it's easy to just stay with that one and not worry about the other. So as you would expect, Zend Studio does have a perspective on Subversion. It also has one on CVS, but we'll be looking at the Subversion one in this webinar. So as you can see up here in the top right, this is the with the toolbar, but on the toolbar is a way to switch between perspectives. So if I pick on SVN repository, my layout changes, my project view disappears, and it's gone to SVN repositories. So here we have test SVN location. We can pick up a new location if we want, just putting in the labels and then eventually the URLs of where that repository exists. So if we look at the existing one, location properties, you can see it is at OSS Cube, the URL for it, and your authentication is there. So again, this is the SVN repository. Within Window and under Preferences is where you can manage that perspective or that interface, if you like. So under the Team submenu, there's CVS and there's SVN, as it can break out that way. So under the SVN template, SVN tab within the Preferences, you have all kinds of different ways to affect how that works. One thing I wanted to show you here is a comment template. So here we can add a template to, we'll show you how that works a little better in a few minutes, but this is a way to have a common comment added to your code each time you commit your changes into the repository. That's if you want to have, if you're always looking for the name of the programmer and the reason for the change, for example, and the date you changed it. So these are, and then we can just put a little divider here, maybe for notes afterwards. So notes on the changes that you may have made. So these are just little prompts to help you remind you of the information you're looking for when you're committing code into the repository. That'll help your team with the consistency of the date you made the change, the reasons you made the change, and any notes. So again, it's just a little prompt to remind you of how of things you've done when you're committing code. So here's one here. We've added this one in. We can edit that or remove it later on. So jumping through the screens again, or the slides. Here we have what I've just shown you, the SVN preferences here, and the list of different preferences as we go. And here's the comment template, which I just showed you as well. So within the SVN perspective, I've showed you the connections, the repository connection, and I'll show you here in a minute how to import this project or certain projects into your local environment. And then we'll talk about the basic functions of SVN. So here we are within Zend Studio again, the SVN perspective. If we switch back to the PHP perspective, we see our code is still open and our projects are still here. Now the way, as you can probably guess, to tell which one is local, a local project versus a repository project, is that there's square brackets after the project name, and it tells you the SVN location. In this case, it's Peter Test. So, just before I go too far into that, I did want to roll back and show you how to look at the different views. So if you go under Window and Show View, you can see some of the simple or the suggested views that are available. And you can see there's just a number of them here, maybe 10 or 12. But if you click under Other at the bottom, you'll see there's a whole list of more views that are available under different topics. So there's task views, there's SVN views, server views, PHP profiler views, tools. Most of the ones you'll find on an everyday basis that you'll use will be under the General tab. One that I use quite often is a progress bar, so a progress view. And what that does is gives me whenever I commit something or I'm checking something out of a repository, anything that's going on, it'll show up here in the bottom with just a little status bar of how far along, what task it's doing. So that gives me a understanding or a quick view to know when a task I've asked to be done will take to complete. So we were back in the SVN view. So again, this is this little sliding area here on the toolbar on the top right is a way to switch between, quick way to switch between perspectives. So again, under Window, you can see the different suggested perspectives, and again, there's others that are pre-defined for you. If you're doing some JavaScript work, you can go into a JavaScript perspective. So it's just a collection of views, again, that Zend Studio thinks you might use in a certain context of your work. So we have, back to the SVN repository. I'll just show you how to check out. I've already checked it out. So I guess I should get rid of that project. I'll just delete this project from my local, and I'll get rid of it from my hard drive as well. So that's gone as a local copy. If I go into my repository view, I can see Peter Test 4 is here. I can check it out. And I'll keep the folder name that is suggested. I can put it in a different workspace. We can talk about workspaces in a minute. And right, for now, I'll just put it in the suggested workspace. So again, while that's going on, I can switch perspectives at any time. So if I go back to my own, it's so small of a project, I was going to show you the progress bar, but it's such a small project, it only has this one sample file in it that it happened so quickly you couldn't see the progress. So again, we're back within our local environment, and here's my SVN project checked out and ready to be worked upon. So that's SVN. Now within SVN, again, now we're trying to make this, I'll kind of make a reference back to the title of our webinar, which is Team Development. So SVN then is a code repository, a common place where teams can, or one person, doesn't matter, teams generally can store their code and share it that way. So it's a common location on a server somewhere else. It could be local to your working office, or it could be remote in another city, or it could actually be in another country. This one I'm bringing in from OSS Cube is actually in India, I believe, and like I said, I'm in Canada, so there's no geographic limitations to where your SVN server is to be able to gain access to it. So again, anyone anywhere in the world can work on this, repository. And once we're working on the file, I'll open up some code. I'll add in a comment. And save the file. Now, as I save this file, we'll notice, just before I do that, This is the file that I'm working on, as we can see it here. As you can see a change, it recognizes that a change has been made locally, so an asterisk is placed beside the file name. I can be working on another file anywhere else in my project list. Now this is the same file, but as you can see it's different. My comment is in the SVN one, and there's nothing changed here, and it's local. So I can work on local projects and SVN projects within the editor at the same time. So the only thing that you have to be aware of is not to get confused between if you're working on files of the same name, is not to get confused on which file you're working on. Zend Studio will keep it straight, but if you're coding and you're making changes to a file and you think it's one place and it's actually another, you just have to kind of make sure and keep that straight. So as we go, this is if I make a save to this file, the asterisk disappears, and some things happen over here on the Project Explorer. A little greater than symbol displays beside the file, and it also displays beside the overall project. And that indicates that something somewhere, if you had a number of files here, something somewhere in this project has changed in relation to the SVN repository. So if you had 30, 40 files in here, it would mark each file with an arrow like this, greater than sign, showing you that it has been changed locally. What you can do then is, if you're ready to commit those changes back to the repository, you can right mouse on the file name or on the project itself. It's better to do it on the project if you have multiple files that you're ready to check in, because if you do right mouse on the project name itself and go to Team and Commit, it will find all the files, in this case we just have one, all the files that need to be committed to the repository, and it'll tell you here that it is modified. It'll also tell you where the file, what project it's in, Peter Test, which is a reference here to the SVN location. Now, if you remember back to the commitment template, we should be able to find, if you drop down this list, the templates, there is a suggestion given to you for a comment before you check it in, or commit it. But you can hear these are the comment templates that we just built, and I can select that one and use that to update my comments and prompt me for information that we've that I set up before for a reason. Just because date is today, well, we'll do it properly. March the 7th, 2011. And then notes can go below. This is a sample code change for webinar purposes. So we know who, we can make this window a little bigger. We know who made the change. Again, we're prompting the comment, commitment comment from our template. So we know who made the change, why it was made, when it was made, and any particular notes on that change. Now again, since we clicked on the overall project, if there were multiple files to be changed, they would be all listed here. And with these check marks, you can turn, if there were 10 here and you only wanted to commit in 2 or 3 of them, you could selectively commit each one of those back to the repository. So if we select OK, this time we should be able to see a little something in the progress view with a little bar going up here on how long it will take to commit. Okay, so that is done and committed. I'm just had a request here to have my I'll adjust my headset a bit too. There, hopefully that's a little better, easier for people to hear. So again, we've committed in our code, and now we've added to our changes to the repository, and if you notice, this number went up. It was 4, and now it's 5. That is the repository's, the SVN's commitment number to the project, overall project. Peter Test has 4. The project entity controller from within Zend Studio is 3. So it's a running total, it's a running number, and it goes on a file-by-file basis. That's why the project is still at 4, because that's what happened when I just checked it out. Again, these are revision numbers within SVN, so you can see at a glance which one was the last file that was committed. So within SVN, there's a lot of controls that can lend themselves to team development. As you saw when I right-moused on this project, we can see the team menu with a lot of different options here. So within, we'll just go through a few of them. I already showed you the commit one. That's when you make local changes to your code and want to send it back up to the repository. The update is when you want to go the other direction. When other people have changed code on the repository and your local files might be out of date. So you would click update to bring down the latest changes from the repository. And the neat thing about that is that it will selectively do the updates. It'll know which files have changed locally compared to what's on the SVN server and bring down to your local environment only those files that have changed since you've last worked on a project. So if you have 300 files and you've only changed 20, it's not going to re-download all 300 files. It'll just bring down those 20 that have changed. You can update to a revision. That means if you know a certain revision number that you want to, it's almost like a rollback, or if you have to select a certain revision area that you want to go back to, revision number, and you know that number, you can selectively update your code to those areas. If you have new files that you want to add into version control, then if you've created the file locally, what you would do is you would select that file and add it to version control first, and then you would commit it into the repository. So that's a two-step process. You can create branches and tags. I'll show you that. It's a little more easy to do that on the SVN repository view. You can show a history of different changes on a certain file. So I'll just quickly show you that. If we look at this file, team, we can say show history. Another view will open up down below here. I'll just bring it up higher so we can see it. And what that does is shows you the revision numbers that we were working on and a history of who made changes, what changes were made, and the comments on those changes. So that's a nice thing. If you're working on a file and someone else may have changed it, and you do an update, you can look at your revision history to see what was changed. And hopefully the comments will be clear enough that That will help you to see what was changed by someone else, or for yourself if it was a couple weeks since you've made those changes. So let's just go back to the slides here and make sure we haven't missed anything. Lock and unlock. So again, this is more of close the history view. So lock and unlock. This is a way to protect a certain file. So in this case, our demo file under team. If we want to lock a file, what that does is we'll comment it. It'll go up onto the SVN repository and put a lock on the file. So it's just like a regular library. You're checking out a book. No one else can look at that book, or in this case our code file, while you have it locked. They can look at it, they just can't make changes to it. So you can make a simple comment if you want. Again, use your complete comment templates if you want on how to, when you're locking files, and that gives you exclusive use to change the file. You just have to remember to unlock it again for the rest of the team to be able to use it. So the other thing I wanted to show you was the branches. So like I said, that was easier to see in the SVN repository. So if we want to, again, we won't actually do it, but I just want to show you how to do it, is on the SVN project location on the repository. If you click on new, right mouse and click on new, you'll see a branch and a tag option there. So if you wanted to branch your project off to another piece, it'll give you a chance to make a branch name, give it a date and revision number and things like that to start an actual branch off of that SVN. Then again, you can check it out locally and start working off that branch. So again, here's our source code management, our files here. A quick way, you don't have to always do the right mouse on a file. I'll go back into our PHP perspective. If this code then has changed, I'll add another comment. Say comment number 2. Again, we see that the file has changed. Save it locally. Then our mark shows up here that something has changed in the repository, in the project. Instead of doing a commit by right-mousing team commit, you can see there's some hotkey combinations here, and it's a good one to get to know is Control-Alt-C. So as you're working on this project, the particular file, if you go Control-Alt-C, Control-Alt-C, it went away. Well, of course, in all demos, some things don't work. Anyway, Control-Alt-C should work when you, same as team and commit. And you can see there's other ones here, Control-Alt-S, Control-Alt-U for update, and so on. So I'm not quite sure why mine didn't work at this time. I'll try it one more time, Control-Alt-C. Oh, there's something just not quite right in there for mine. Could be because I'm sharing the desktop within the webinar and so on. That might be overriding some of my hotkey combinations. So if I make a save here, whoops, Windows 7 is not always the best. So if I add in another comment here and I See if I can Control S, it does a save. So some of the key combinations are working and some of them are not. And again, I suspect it's the webinar software that's overriding some of my key combinations. So back to the slides. Here's our list again of the different options within the SVN repository, that view. And you can actually delete if you want to, copy and cut and copy and paste some of your repository entries. Most of the time you'll be either checking out or check out as you're from the repository to start working on your code locally. Again, here's the menu list of things you can do within the team menu. You can commit, you can update, you can lock and unlock, you can even branch and merge from within the local environment. You can lock and unlock and so on. So again, a lot of these things show history there. We looked at that. The other thing is you can look at show local history, which is neat. You can look at your local changes, compare them as you save. If you do multiple saves within coding session and then at the end of it you do a commit, there's a difference between the local saves, that you can almost think of them as commits on a local level, and then a commit on the SVN level. So you can see your local history. You can compare your changes that you've done locally versus changes within the history within the repository. So now what we're going to look at, that's the SVN piece, is we're going to look at different ways to reorganize Zend Studio for Eclipse for a better team environment. So we can look at the console view, the history view. I just showed you that one. Synchronize view, that helps you do synchronize your code between your repository and your local view, and then lets you perform updates as needed. And then the task view. So let's look at some of those. So the console view, I have that open up here. Nothing's actually happening in it. I think you have to change. There's different consoles. There's CVS, there's SVN, and if you have a FTP view, you can see really what it's doing is what's going on within those environments. If you have a remote connection or an SVN connection or a CVS connection. So right now what I'm going to do is just open this up. I'll commit these changes and you'll see what happens in the console view. I'll just take everything as it is. So what it's doing here is it issues these commands to the repository. Here's the commit, SVN commit, and then it tells you what files are being committed, any error messages that happen along the way. Here's who's committing it. These things are all saved in the SVN repository. When you make a connection, what files you're transmitting. That's again, if you're doing 3 or 4 at the same time, or many at the same time, they'll list here repeatedly, and then the revision number that is finished, that is being used when you finish it, and the OK signal when your commitment's all done. So again, that's kind of a detailed text output of what happens behind the scenes as you do a commit within Zend Studio. Again, here now we're up to revision number 6, which matches our revision here. The history view, I've shown you that. You can, anytime you want to open a view, like I showed you as well, you can see them here. And let's look for the history view. So under team and history, you can open that up. Again, we've seen excuse me, the revision numbers of the files that we are changing. If we want to refresh that, it'll check with the repository, and we'll see that number 6 is now here. And if we want to actually look at a revision number, if we double click on that revision number, we get a file here. That was a little message, but see if I can open this up a little better. So I'll just drag the history view to the bottom here, and show you so when we got revision 4, it just showed you that file as the state it was in. You notice my comments are not there. So this is the state it was in at revision number 4. So you can look at it as it appeared at different moments in history. Thus the name of the history view. So I'll close that view. Now if I actually right mouse on this file and I want to see what's going on in the past, you can see underneath the team menu there's a compare with. So if I want to compare with the latest from a repository, there shouldn't be any changes because they're both on revision 6. So it'll tell me that there's no difference between these two inputs. Now if I go right mouse and I want to compare with local history, I'll get a list of all the different entries, my commitments locally, my file saves, within this history view. So if I open up, double click on 1 from 10 in the morning, you'll see line by line, which is pretty neat, the changes that have been affected in the file. So here's the local file as it exists now, and here's the file as it existed at that history time point. So the two comments, number 2 and number 3, were not there at that last time of save, but of course they're here now in my existing version. So that's a neat way to look at past code and things you've changed over time. So that's the history view. So the other one is a synchronization view. So that's a whole different perspective. If I go to Team Sync perspective, let's see if I can find that. Team synchronizing. And I OK that, my display will change entirely. So here I can look at my differences between, if I click on synchronize it, what it will do is it'll go out to the SVN repository in my workspace, and what it will do is it'll compare everything in my workspace to anything on, again, I get a message saying no changes in the workspace because everything's been committed. But what this will do, will have a list of all the files that have changed locally versus what's on the repository. So again, in a team environment, if many people are working on a certain project and certain files are changed and you're not aware of them on a local perspective, you can do the synchronization and you can see it's kind of a fine-tuned update. So it will show you, it'll compare which files are open, or sorry, which files have changed and been committed in the repository versus which ones you have on your local workspace, work area. And it'll give you the chance to update selectively which ones you want to bring down to your local environment. This is different, like I said, from just a mass update where it would just take everything that's changed in the difference comparison between local and SVN repository updates. So this is, again, more a fine-tuned way of performing your updates. So again, we can switch back to our different perspectives here. Go back to our PHP perspective, and I'll close the history view, and we're pretty much back to what we saw before. Now, the other thing we can do is look at the task view, and I have that here. What you can do with tasks is you can assign yourself things within each file that need to be done. So I can right mouse on a line of code that I want to make a change, but I want to come back to it later. So even in this HTML code here, name, address, phone, I might want to add the country later on. So I can right mouse, I right mouse in this area here beside the file numbers, the line numbers, and I can add a task. So this is the line of code that I'm adding the task to, but that's not really a very good name for it. I want to add country to table, and it'll remember what line of code it's on, so I don't need to know what the suggestion of the code that was there. So a little task check mark to-do list kind of symbol shows up on that line of code. I can see my country description here, add country to table, and I can see all the details for that task. Now again, if I want to say that the task is done, I just do a check mark and the task is complete, but we'll say that it's not done yet. If you have a list of tasks that you want done to a code file or a project, you can list them here, and the way to save, again, those tasks are local to yourself. So what we do then is, if I want to share that with a team, under File menu, I can export, and under export I can export my tasks, my task list and content. It'll save it to a file as a zip, and then I can share those tasks with my team, either through just sending them around through email, or I can actually make since it's saved out as a file, I can add it as a file to a project, and people can pick up those tasks and read them and work on them that way. So it's 10:48 here. I'm getting a little slow. Hopefully everyone's still with me. One thing I just wanted to show you quickly is that, as you saw, I have my own perspective, and again, this is not really necessarily a team idea, but it's something that we can do within Zend Studio. For Eclipse, what I can do is I can rearrange. I can show, maybe I don't want the problems view, maybe I don't want the outline view, maybe I don't want that task list, maybe I don't want this type hierarchy. I just want a clean environment here, and maybe I want the progress to be off on its own. So I can split the screen there. Actually, I probably want to have it side by side. That's a little better. Now, as I rearrange my own work environment, what I can do is I can save the perspective under my own name. So I can save perspective as, this is my PHP, I already have one called PBM, I'll say PBM2, and then Zend Studio remembers all the views that are open and how they're laid out. So I can go back to any kind of I can go back to the basic PHP perspective I want to. These views all show up again. If I want to go back to my own, that's PBM2. I can just click on the perspectives bar, and again, this is my own perspective, so it's adjusted to my liking. So there's the different ways to make your own custom perspectives and arrange them. A great idea is to mix and match your own views. As you get to know Zend Studio and you want to, and you're starting to like certain perspectives, starting to like certain views, you can collect them and arrange them and lay them out as you like, and then that will have the work environment customized to your own liking. So what we want to do now is just, there's other different views that are for team concepts that can help. If you're working on a remote view like an FTP connection, there is a view for that. You can do it through FTP or SFTP. The drawback here, like it's mentioned in the slides, is that there's no SVN code history, and there's no real, you can share code across the FTP connection, but there's no history, no traceback, no ability to roll back any changes. There is a refactoring tools within Zend Studio for Eclipse. Quickly, that is a way to change your code if somebody decides in your team to name a different function a different way. What you can do is refactor through your project, and it will search through your project and change code for you as it finds a certain function name. So that saves you going through file by file looking for a certain function. The refactoring tool will go through an entire project and make changes for you. Another feature is the code gallery. We can look at that another time, but look that up yourselves. It's a way to share code. If you have a neat function or a great function that you are creating that's good for common use, you can add to the code gallery and comment on that snippet of code. And if you think it's good enough, you can actually commit it to Zend has a common code gallery, and I'll just show you that quickly. There's a view, oddly enough, called code gallery, and here it is here. So there's there's your own local code gallery if you want to add pieces to it, but there's also the Zend code gallery, and the way to get into that is that you have to have a username and password for Zend.com, and it will let you in there. I won't get into that right now, but there's a whole list. There's thousands of functions that are added into Zend's code gallery that you can make use of. So again, that's not necessarily team-based, but it's a way to share code amongst a broader community of PHP developers. Also, if you look into PHP doc standardizations, that's a great way to comment your code and also allow it to create. Zend Studio also has a tool that will look through your code projects for PHP doc entities and create documentation in HTML format or PDF format for your team. So if you comment your functions or your classes, you can create a good little PDF, kind of a lookup resource on for like new programmers that might be coming along to the team. It's a great way to comment your code and your code, your repository of your own code or your projects. So that is our time. Hopefully it went well and it was helpful to you. We have a few minutes now to open it up to questions if there are any. I'm just bringing out my Questions? See if there's any here. There's a question, can I have this in a PDF format? You're talking about this presentation, I believe, so it will be available on OSS Cube as a recorded webinar, so you can, the slides will also be up there, and we can probably save the slides in PDF format if you like, and we'll put that up there. So the next question is, can we have the PowerPoint slides for future use and reference? Yes, we can. The slides will be put up along with this recorded webinar. And we have if you gave us your email when you registered, we will be able to contact you that way as to how to get in touch and find these resources. And there's a question here about explaining about tag and branch. Well, I actually don't know a whole lot about it. I do know more about the branch than I do about tags. What branching is if you have a SVN or CBS, does the same thing, tool, project within those environments, and you want to take the project off in its own other direction, but you still want to keep the original. What you can do is either duplicate the entire project and take it off in its own direction, or you can create a branch off of the same project. And creating a branch then allows you, it's almost like going into a fork in a road, so so that you can take a project off in its own direction but still have the history of code to look at anytime up to the time that you created the branch. Also, there are times, and I'm not too sure about this because I've never really taken it too far, but you can also merge the branch back into the original project at some point. Now, of course, there could be coding conflicts and naming conventions and things like that you'd face. That's more of an SVN CVS concept that you'd have to look into and research. So hopefully that gave you a little bit of an idea of how that's working. Are there any other questions? Again, that was a quick review of some team concepts of how to do things within Zend Studio for Eclipse. Hopefully you found it of some value. Now there are some other tools. Well, here's another question. If you right-click on the PHP Explorer, there's an import and export. Can you please explain that? Well, I showed you the export. Let's just jump over there. Hopefully you can still see my screen. If you click on File Export or Import, if you click on Export, what you get is an entire list of different things that you can export. So we saw the team tasks, the tasks here. You can export things, XML catalogs and servers. If you have debug breakpoints, you can export those. There's just a subset of things that are exportable from within Zend Studio. So you can look around. If you want to export your file system, you can. And import obviously is the other side of that. If you're exporting, let's say you're exporting your tasks, you can export it. It exports it as an XML file, so you can look at it that way. What you can then do is import, the rest of the team can then import that file, and it will become part of their own local Zend Studio environment there, so their tasks will show up that way as well. So so the follow-up question is, if we export, it will go to SVN. No, it'll just export it as an XML file to your local hard drive, and then you have to share it through email, or, I mean, if you want to create, you can add it to SVN if you want, but it's an extra step. It's not, it won't be automatically done like that. Question, where can I get the PowerPoint slide? They will be somewhere on osscube.com. So we'll upload those there in a day or so. And one last question is, which one is best, CVS or SVN? Well, when I originally started using these tools, I did some reading, and I read that SVN is a little more robust. It's a little more modern, if you will. It's a more recent tool, so I just picked SVN and went with that. I think they're pretty much comparably equal, and it's hard to really say which one's best. I just picked one, SVN, did a little bit of my own research, and went with that one. So that's our time. If there's one or two last questions, I'll be happy to take them. Here's one last question. Is there any way to decrypt IonCube encrypted PHP file through Zend Studio? Not that I know of. IonCube or Zend, I can't think of the Zend product name right off the top of my head. I've started to use it. They're both encryption tools, so unless you actually have IonCube, the ability to, I don't know if that tool has the ability to unencrypt it or decrypt, so I would have to say no. I know there's nothing within Zend Studio that will do that, because they're encrypted files. You would have to have the original source. Okay, if there's no other questions, then I thank you for your time and your attention. And again, I should apologize for last week's technical difficulties that we had to postpone it for a week. So I apologize again for that, but hopefully you found this seminar of value and worthwhile. And again, like I said, we will have these resources on osscube.com somewhere, probably under webinars or a menu select in there somewhere. And if you signed up with your emails, I think we'd be able to contact you that way to let you know where those resources are. So we'll get the recording of this webinar and the PowerPoint slides up there for your future reference. So again, thank you for your time, and we'll sign off for now.